So guys, today we're going to be reviewing on the new Plague Tale game using the RTX 3080. We're going to be starting it off with 1080p on the high preset. I'm going to skip medium and low for this card since this is a story driven game and there's really no need to be playing on those lower settings. And yeah, these are the settings: 1080p full screen. We're going to scroll at 100%. We want to turn off VSync. But yeah, I played a little bit beforehand while running down this hill pretty much, and we did drop down into the 70s. So I got a bit worried thinking we were playing at 1440p or 4K, but again, I showed the settings off. It was 1080p and it was on full screen as well.
I'm still your mother's apprentice.
The game could be using a borderless full screen, could be a forced full screen, but I guess we'll see. I saw a bunch of posts about this game running on console and apparently it runs at 30 FPS on Series X and PS5. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but
of course.
I guess it kind of shows how intensive this game is. So far we're averaging around 90 to 100 FPS, but I've seen it dip down into the 80s, just like we did over there. Yeah, like right here we're sitting in the 80s, but running up to this area we were sitting in the 90s to 100. So it definitely depends what area you're in and what you're looking at. But yeah, if you're going to be playing at 1080p, you're going to have an issue with this card as you would expect. Oh, we're sitting in the low 70s there.
Are you hurt? No.
Kind of worrying to be honest, if we're sitting in the 70s at 1080p.
That's enough for today.
Now we know that this game runs around 40 FPS at 4K max settings, I believe. That's what Nvidia tested. Around 45 FPS, I'm pretty sure. And the 4080 12GB, we know that card's gone now, but that would get around 47 FPS, so slightly higher than 3080 in this game. But that's like in this area we're sitting at 80 FPS. Very intensive game. It has a very wide FPS range as well. Lowest I've seen so far is around 74 FPS, and the highest is around 120 to 140 FPS, I believe. The game doesn't look the best at 1080p. It's got a weird look to it. But I'm sure at 1440p and 4K, clarity will be insane. The game will look far, far better. You guys gotta stop whispering, man. They can hear us. Can we just choke these guys out? Okay. Oh. Like also here we're sitting at 80 FPS as well. Seems like the foliage is super intensive. I want to sit here and I want to go check our FPS. We're sitting at 90 FPS right now. And then, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and try DLSS in case someone wants to play at 1080p with DLSS. So I'm going to be using quality for 1080p, and that gave us around 30 FPS. We're sitting at 90 FPS, now we're sitting at 120 FPS, so it's quite a good boost. The quality looks about the same as what we had before as well. It looks very close to native. I really like it. So it's a good sign. The DLSS does look very good in this game, even at 1080p. Looking at the trees, do we see any weirdness going on there? Looks quite good actually. Alright, we're back and we're playing the game in ultra settings now, 1080p. I'll go ahead and show the settings off real quick. Graphics, 1080p. Full screen is definitely not an actual full screen. It seems like it's a borderless full screen. But the game's still running at 1080p. I can see the overlay size is definitely bigger compared to 1440p. DLSS is disabled, and these are the settings for ultra. And so far it looks like we got around a 10 FPS decrease compared to high. It's not too bad so far, but I guess we'll see. This gets me excited for the RTX 3050, since that card's main selling point was DLSS. So that card will definitely see a benefit of using DLSS even at 1080p because the game looks so good. So if our lowest FPS at 1080p high was around 74 FPS, we should be falling to the 60s at ultra. Why did we make so much noise? Oh no.
What the hell?
Okay, there's no way, no way he falls for that. He sees a rock fly past his head and he doesn't investigate. Look at that, we're falling into the 60s like I said. Now we might even fall into the 50s, depending on the scene. There might be a heavier scene later down the game, and this area is already quite intensive with all the foliage, but I guess you never know. So I looked it up, and apparently some people say that the game runs at an uncapped frame rate on console, Series X and PS5, and some say that the game is running at 30 FPS locked, so it's kind of weird. I'm not really sure who to believe at this point. Open it up, come on man. But seems about right if they got a 30 FPS lock on this game, because it is quite intensive, and Playing this game at 4K on console, 100% would be a 30 FPS cap. But I would expect at least a 60 FPS lock at 1080p or 1440p with those consoles. The fire, FPS rips on, look at a fire, 70 FPS, very intensive. But we already knew we could hit 70 FPS playing at ultra settings. Then that was a strong kick. Nice. We're going to be sitting at 6 gigabytes almost. Still got around 4 gigs to spare with this card. I've got the 10 gigabyte variant of this card, so if you got the 12 gig variant, RAM shouldn't be an issue anyway for you regardless. Seems like a good area for us to go ahead and test out 1440p now. Let's go ahead and exit out. But as you can see, the overlay got smaller, so it did update the resolution. And the game does look way sharper as well. Okay, playing at 1440p ultra settings. Wow, we're sitting in the 50s. I mean, I kind of expected this, but still. Alright, so looking at the time, we're getting 64 FPS, which isn't the lowest, sadly. In that fire scene that we had before, we did fall down into the low to mid 50s, which is kind of insane to say for a 3080 at 1440p, but this is a reality now. So pretty much at 1440p and above, if you want to play at those higher settings, you want to definitely use DLSS. It's there, you might as well try it out and use it. And we already know how good it looks at 1080p, so at 1440p it should look even better. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and use DLSS now as well. We can see what kind of an FPS boost we get from it and how it looks.
Can you be so sure?
Looks just as good as native, and we gained around 10 to 15 FPS in this area. Let's go ahead and look over the city again. We were getting 60 FPS here beforehand, and now we're getting almost 80 FPS, so a 20 FPS increase, but it's using DLSS. And we're only using the quality preset as well, which means we have more options to go to balance and performance and get more frames. But we're getting 110 FPS here, and the lowest we've seen it was around 80, while we're still sitting in the 60s and 50s in this area with DLSS.
Would you know the whereabouts?
Our GPU is getting bottlenecked here, that's why our FPS is dropping down into the 70s. Not the GPU's fault. I was getting kind of worried that thinking that DLSS wasn't working. But it's not the graphics card's fault, we're just getting bottlenecked. So this game is just very intensive in general. On the CPU, GPU, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to go ahead and test out DLSS and balance as well so we can see how it looks at 1440p. And looks very good. Looks just as good as quality or playing the game at native.
How come nobody noticed their disappearance?
Can't really see any blurriness. It very much reminds me of Chernobyl. Game just looks really good with DLSS. Alright, we're back to 1440p high settings now. Already done ultra, so had to go back and do high now. And this indoor area isn't going to be too intensive, so getting 90 FPS isn't really... Alright, in this area we're getting 70 FPS for whatever reason. There's definitely quite low. GPU still fully maxed out as well.
They left a knife. It's stuck. Come on.
So it seems kind of random. Some scenes are just super intensive and some aren't intensive at all. Like
Let's keep going.
that flower scene, we're still getting 80 to 90 FPS beforehand, and then this area was falling into the 70s at a lower preset as well.
I had no choice. A blade is silent and quick. It's what we need now.
All right. It's up to you.
Gonna be a good knife though. I'm gonna shank someone with it to get close enough. So I wouldn't be surprised if we fail. Look at that, 61 FPS. So we're on the edge of 60 at 1440p high settings. So you definitely want to use DLSS with this preset as well, which I'll be doing right now. I'm gonna go ahead and use quality preset. Here we are. Gained around 20 FPS, almost 30 FPS. 36 FPS is the safe thing to say. There's a psychopath up top. No, there's nothing here, don't worry. Look behind you, buddy. Oh no, you got shanked. And you. Next time wear a helmet. Oh my god, he's gonna go check the body now. We gotta go. We gotta go. Where you find his boy dead. There we go. We're getting very close to that 90 FPS range though. Oh, that we just hit 90 FPS with DLSS. This is gonna be a good stress test right here. We can see over the map. Look at that 80 FPS with DLSS at 1440p high settings.
Lucas Cross
Man,
was
this game
meant
is
to be easy and
intensive.
quick.
It's the order.
Crazy how
A
poorly it
High
runs.
Magister would just live in a high tower.
At least stuttering isn't too
Let's just
bad.
get there.
Yeah, it was far worse at ultra settings 440p, but at high settings it's only happened like once or twice, so not too bad at all. Hasn't ruined the experience. The FPS there is kind of dangerous. We are falling into the 80s with DLSS, which you don't really see too often. 4K, I'm very much worried for, which I'll be moving up to right now. Okay, playing at 4K now. Gonna be using the high preset, like we did before. I'm gonna be going for a base FPS of 30, getting 40 FPS. This area is so intensive, I bet. Okay, not so much. We're getting 50 FPS at 4K high settings. We were getting 30 FPS before on the outside, on the outdoors, but right now we're sitting at 50. Wow, that's so laggy. Getting 30 FPS there for a second. Give me that torch.
We're safe.
I'm gonna burn them.
Calm down.
The fire is definitely intensive as well. Move out the way, boys. I got places to be.
We must. Let's
Yeah,
go
4K, even at high settings, it's already too much for this card. Makes sense why they capped the FPS to 30 on consoles now. We are getting 50 FPS indoors. This area would be quite intensive with all the rats all around us and the fire, but I think the outdoor scenes will be way worse than this.
That will hold.
And we already had a glimpse of it as well. We're sitting at 35 FPS to 40 FPS outdoors, but luckily they added DLSS to this game, so it is saved, I guess, somewhat. While we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and see DLSS. We can see how much of a boost we can get out of it at 4K. I want to start with balance. Quality is a bit underwhelming, to be honest, for 4K. While I can use balanced and get, look at that, 80 FPS, 90 FPS at 4K. The game looks just as good as 4K native as well. Not really losing much quality.
For now.
For now.
And frame rate is looking real nice as well. We jumped from 40 to 50 FPS to 90 FPS, so that's a 40 FPS increase just by using DLSS. The game looks fantastic at 4K though, even with DLSS. Like I said before, it looks like native, looks incredibly sharp.
Clear ground. That's better.
Even at high settings, the game looks amazing. After I'm done with this video, I'll be going ahead and doing the video with a 3060 Ti. And then tomorrow I'll be going over all the other cards that I have left over and getting all that done as well. We're getting 77 FPS here, but we are getting bottlenecked again. GPU sitting at 80%. So even though we got DLSS, we still can't take full advantage of it, which kind of sucks. And for those of you who want to try out the higher DLSS presets, I'm gonna go ahead and try out Ultra Performance as well and see if the quality looks okay. At this point, I can definitely see a quality loss at Ultra Performance. What are these rats doing? If you look at the hair, you can see the hair is definitely bugging out. We can't really test out the FPS of DLSS in this area since our GPU is getting bottlenecked here, but we can see the quality, and Ultra Performance is just not it, even at 4K. Now using Performance DLSS, it is still looking very sharp, very good. The hair is starting to bug out as well though, it's not perfect. So I think the sweet spot for this game is balanced DLSS. At 1440p or 4K, they both look very good. 54 FPS at ultra settings, 4K. Almost 60 FPS as well. But yeah, it's not the most intensive area yet.
It could be a way out.
What is that thing?
I read about
The FPS range is so high that the game is feeling very sluggish and then speeding up again. It's a very weird feeling. You definitely want to either have a 30 FPS cap at this point, or use DLSS and play at 60 plus.
real.
Yes.
Because we're going from 50 to 60 and then 30 in like a matter of seconds, and it's ruining the experience quite a bit. So at 30 FPS, and with Nvidia's benchmark we're getting 38 FPS at 4K ultra settings for this card. So VRAM is at 7 gigs, so it didn't really go too much higher than what we had at the start, which is very nice. We have plenty of headroom left over still with this card. Yeah, you guys go after this one. Very delicious. Go. You're welcome, rats. I'm feeding you. Yeah, let's get out of here, man. Alright, let's go and enable DLSS like normal. We're going to be going straight for balanced. Quality already looks good. Balance looks the same as quality. Now we're getting 70 FPS. Very, very smooth now.
Let's check that other room. That's sulfur, right?
I think I'm going to end the video here, guys. I'm going to go ahead and do the video for the RTX 3060 Ti now, and we'll continue from there. But yeah, that's it for the video, guys. If you made this far, I appreciate you. And as always, if you like what you see, then a like and sub to the channel, I appreciate as well. See you next time.
Having the time of my life.